We improved classification when we combined read tasks and monologues in training to test on monologues. So that means that we can use dedicated tests and we can use that stuff to see how are people doing in everyday life. So if you want to do the unobtrusive monitoring, you have no control of what people say. In the dedicated test, the doctor is present, says, why don't you reread that sentence or something like that. But if you want to just, so to speak, be a companion for the guy, and it's very important to say, okay, the monologue is probably the closest to everyday conversation, and so to show that we improved that is a good result. For Alzheimer and Parkinson, as we just saw, we could show that we improved the feature selection with the GCCA when we combined different tasks like picture description and conversation, and showed that multi-view learning improves the results on databases where certain factors are missing. So we did have the multimodal database. We did have the GATE, which is good for having the UPDRS score, better than speech, and learned from having these data in parallel how to improve the features, how to add some important features to the speech classification task in a situation where we don't have this modality, and we did the same thing for the Alzheimer. And we also showed that the acoustic information is important for Alzheimer and linguistic is important for Parkinson. I didn't get into detail on the Parkinson on that. For the Alzheimer, right before this workshop, I went to a neurologist and tried to get some data, and she says, "Oh yeah, I have the fluency task," and she gave me the paper, and she gave me a handful of paper, and those were handwritten enumerations of animals. With you can't really read that. But even if you digitize it, there was no pause information, and I think what Nikolai showed was that the pausing is a very important thing. And he could show that, we should actually use that. And if we have a situation where somebody is talking about what Frank said in the beginning about, the picture of a family or so, the pausing information will be important. So for the unobtrusive, it is very, very important. On the other hand, we did look at the monologues that the Parkinson people said, what did I do yesterday? And we looked using the features, the linguistic features from the Toronto group. We looked at the semantic classes of these verbs, and it turned out that there is a difference. That the Parkinson people used a lot less active verbs, for instance, or more receiving verbs. And using the Venn clouds from the social media group, when you analyze the monologue, you did really actually see there was a difference in the words that were important in the one side and in the other. We found that UPDRS is not a good reference without additional information. It's a snapshot. The doctor looks at the guy and says, go like this, and then says, oh, that's normal, or that's difficult, that's very severely. And in our longitudinal data, more improvements in the UPDRS over time. So if you had, as Rafa indicated, if you have 2 sessions over time, it turned out that in the second session, the UPDRS very often got better. So there is way more influencing it seems that the UPDRS changes significantly with medication, with testing condition, and with the form of the patient on the day. He has a bad day, he has a good day. And And so, without the additional information, how long ago was this taken? Which I can do in a dedicated test. Okay, I can ask them before, when was that done, and then very often in the literature you see the UBDRS was taken on stage or something like that. So a maximum of, let's say, 2 hours after the medication intake. So if you have that, if you don't have that, then the UBDRS is not such a good thing. It seems that speech is less affected by these changes. So the correlation is about 0.4 to 0.5 for UBDRS, but when we look at speech, we get about 0.8 in the controlled condition. So because we had we say that the UBDRS is not so good, we started to develop this dysarthria rating, which we can apply to already collected data. The Frenchet dysarthria test requires the person, the analyst, to be present, but with this modifications, we can use them for existing speech collections. We showed that for speech we get significantly better. So the best regression we got was over 0.7 for the FDA, modified FDA, versus about 0.5 for the UBDRS using speech. And the inter and intra rater agreement is only slightly better. It's about 0.73 to 0.8. We showed that the PADACA was the best subtest for the modified FDA, and what we're currently doing is combine the word recognition the word recognition approach with phonological features from Miloš to improve these results. What we'll need to do is we have to go back to the drawing board. Now, during the workshop, we identified a couple patients that were quote-unquote outliers with respect to this Frenchet. So we will refine the ratings based on the results of this workshop. So we will discuss these outliers with the phoniatricians, and based on this modify the FDA, and then relabel these data with new phoniatricians, get better, improved evaluations of the inter and intra-rater agreement, and we will apply these labels to the other languages that we have, using phoniatricians from those countries. This is a very preliminary result, but I think it's promising. We developed a model for the medication intake, that is the levodopa equivalent plasma level. It seems to correlate with automatically predicted UBDRS values, value change over the day based on the speech gait and gait. So in both cases, we did see a change in the predicted values of these UBDRS values based on dedicated tests and predicted on monologues in the at-home condition. Maybe a point I should mention is that, of course, especially because the people knew they were recorded, they adhered very closely to their medication plan. So, and for ethical reasons, we can't say don't take your medication. So it is clear that the observed influence on the gait and on the speech measures is based on a correct intake, and there is indications that up to 30-50% of the patients don't regularly take all their medications correctly. So this is a trend that we cannot verify in our data. And we will need way more data than 7 patients to work on that. But as I said, it is only a promising trend, and we want to pursue this. And Heidi will